We were looking in the wrong place. For 2,000 years, the ocean, the Atlantic, the deep. Plato said it sank into the sea. So we searched the sea. We found nothing. But there's a problem with that logic. Plato didn't invent the story of Atlantis. He was repeating what he heard. Herodotus came first, the father of history. He walked the world. He listened. He wrote down what ancient peoples told him about their lands, their rivers, their mountains, their civilizations. Herodotus divided North Africa into 3 zones. He mapped the coast. He described the interior. And on the maps his words inspired, in the heart of Africa, a name appears that should not exist there. Not myth, not legend, but a specific place, a specific people, Atlantis, inland in North Africa. Not underwater, not beyond the known world, but marked, labeled .real. For centuries, scholars called it an error, a mapmaker's mistake, a confusion of ancient tongues. But what if it wasn't a mistake? What if someone was trying to remember something true? Now listen to Plato. Nearly a century after Herodotus, Plato describes the city with architectural precision, not vague mysticism, numbers, measurements, geometry. Concentric rings of land and water, he writes. Alternating layers, the center island 5 stadia in diameter, the rings of water 3 stadia broad, then 2 stadia, then 1. The entire construction surrounded by a wall 50 stadia from the harbor. That is not poetry, that is a blueprint. For thousands of years, we assumed this city lay beneath the Atlantic. But when you take those exact measurements, when you overlay them on satellite imagery, when you map Plato's coordinates onto the ground in West Africa, you find something: the Sahara Desert, Mauritania, latitude 20.9 degree N, longitude 11.4 degree, a perfect spiral carved into the sand, 40 kilometers across, concentric rings, symmetrical, deliberate, like an eye staring up from the stone. The Richat Structure, the eye of Africa, when you measure it. When you compare Plato's stadia to the Richat's dimensions, the numbers align, not approximately, not loosely, but with mathematical precision. Plato, 23.5 kilometers. The Richat, 23.5 kilometers. The rings, the geometry, the orientation, the depths, everything matches. This is not coincidence. Coincidence does not repeat this way. Coincidence does not synchronize 2 ancient sources with modern measurements and produce perfection. 2 men, 2,000 years apart. 2 descriptions of the same impossible place. And that place is real. It is buried. It is bleached. It is staring back at us from the desert floor. The investigation begins now. This is where we prove it. Atlantis was never lost at sea. It was erased from the Sahara, and the evidence never left. Plato didn't write a story. He wrote specifications. In his dialogue, Critias, he describes Atlantis like an architect submitting a plan. A central island, rings of land and water alternating outward, each with exact measurements in stadia. The total diameter, 127 stadia. Convert that to meters, roughly 23.5 kilometers. Now look at the Richat structure from satellite. The inner rings measure 23.5 kilometers across. The exact same number, but it gets more precise. Plato describes the shape in architectural detail. Concentric circles, alternating bands of land and water, perfectly symmetrical, radiating from a center point. He gives the width of each ring. He specifies the dimensions of canals and bridges. Look at the Richat rings inside rings. Valleys between ridges, a central dome of raised rock, successive concentric belts spreading outward. The pattern matches Plato's description. There's more. Plato mentions an opening to the sea, a navigable passage where ancient ships could enter the rings, sail through the canals, and reach the central island. The Richat has exactly that. On one side, the rings break. Channels and dry valleys run toward where the ancient coastline of West Africa would have been. A Greek philosopher in 360 BC describes a city that supposedly doesn't exist. He specifies its exact diameter. He details its ring structure. He marks where the sea entrance should be. Over 2,300 years later, a formation in the Sahara matches all three details perfectly. Same dimensions, same geometry, same directional opening. That's not mythology meeting geology by accident. That's a blueprint meeting its construction site. But now the skeptics ask the obvious question: how could a city survive in a desert? The answer destroys their objection completely. Because 12,000 years ago, the Sahara wasn't a desert at all. It's a desert. Nothing could live there. That's what they say, but they're wrong about the timeline. 12,000 years ago, the Sahara wasn't a desert. It was alive. The African humid period. A lush green landscape where monsoon rains fell regularly. Rivers carved through the dunes. Lakes spread across what is now sand. Vegetation covered the ground. Animals roamed. Hippos, elephants, antelopes, aurochs. This wasn't a myth, it's geology. Sediment cores prove it. Pollen records confirm it. Rock art across the region shows hunters tracking game in grasslands where only dunes exist today. The Green Sahara lasted from roughly 11,000 to 5,000 years ago. That's the critical window. Plato described Atlantis being destroyed in a single day and night. He placed this catastrophe approximately 11,600 years ago. The Green Sahara period begins 12,000 years ago. Atlantis's destruction date falls almost exactly into the humid phase, but there's harder evidence. Around the Richat Structure and across Mauritania, archaeologists have found whale skeletons and shells embedded in the sand. Not from 37 million years ago like Egypt's Whale Valley, but from a time when water covered the region, when the Atlantic was closer, when rivers and lakes fed inland basins. These aren't ancient fossils. They're recent enough to matter. The evidence is physical. The water was there. The coastline extended further into Africa. The Richat was surrounded by wetlands, rivers, and accessible sea routes. Plato wrote that Atlantis was built by a coastal civilization that controlled trade and navigation. A city surrounded by water, with harbors and canals. During the Green Sahara, that was possible. The Richat could have been exactly what Plato described. A thriving port city in a fertile wet landscape connected to the sea by navigable channels. And then it ended. Around 500–600 years ago, a cosmic event triggered the climate to shift. The monsoons retreated, the rains stopped, the lakes dried, the rivers vanished, and the desert returned. But Plato gave a specific date for Atlantis's fall, 11,600 years ago, according to most translations. That's not the end of the Green Sahara. That's when it began. Which means something else destroyed the city before the desert killed the land. Something catastrophic, something sudden, and the date Plato named points to one of the most violent events in human history. An impact, a flood, a cataclysm that left mud in its wake. The mud that made the sea impassable, just as Plato said. Now we turn to geology, to the ground itself. Plato was very specific about the construction materials of Atlantis. He wrote that the builders used 3 colors of stone: red, black, and white. Not a poetic flourish, not metaphor. 3 specific colors. For centuries, this detail was ignored, dismissed as ancient embellishment. But when geologists surveyed the Richat Structure, they found exactly that. 3 types of exposed bedrock: red sandstone, dark gabbro and igneous rock, white cherty material and limestone. 3 colors, layered in concentric rings. What are the odds that a philosopher in ancient Greece describes 3 specific stone colors for a city that supposedly doesn't exist? And, millennia later, a formation in the Sahara displays those exact same 3 stone types. But there's more. Plato described freshwater. He wrote that the central island was fed by springs flowing from underground sources, natural fountains. Water that made the city fertile and self-sufficient. This is the smoking gun. Geological surveys of the Richat have detected evidence of ancient underground aquifers, paleo waters trapped deep beneath the surface. The hydrothermal systems that shape the structure left behind mineral deposits and rock formations consistent with sustained freshwater flow. The central breccia dome. The heart of the structure shows evidence of hydrothermally altered rock, where hot, mineral-rich water once circulated. During the Green Sahara period, when the water table was higher and rainfall regular, those aquifers would have flowed upward naturally. Springs would have emerged at the surface, exactly as Plato described, a city surrounded by water, built with stones of 3 colors, fed by natural springs. Every detail Plato gave us finds a match in the Richat's geology. This isn't coincidence anymore. This is a record, written in stone. Local legends matter. When an entire region preserves stories across millennia, they often contain fragments of truth buried under layers of myth. In Mauritania, the tribes have stories, old stories, passed down through generations. They speak of a rich civilization, a powerful people, a great city that was destroyed by water and catastrophe. The details vary by tribe, but the core is consistent. A lost kingdom, an advanced people erased. Now connect this to Plato. He wrote that the first king of Atlantis was named Atlas, the founder, the original ruler, the man after whom the entire kingdom was named. Atlas, it's not a random name. To the north of the Richat Structure, rising dramatically from the Saharan plain, is a mountain range, the Atlas Mountains. These peaks stretch across Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. They have been known by this name for thousands of years, named after the mythological king, the Titan who held up the sky. But what if the mountains were named after something else? What if they were named after a real king, a ruler of a real civilization that existed where the Richat now stands? The Atlas Mountains form a natural boundary to the north of the Richat, a wall, a fortress, a geographic marker that frames the entire structure. In ancient times, when the land was green and the city thrived, those mountains would have been visible from the central island, a landmark, a natural fortification. Plato said Atlantis was surrounded by mountains. He said it was a defended position, a place with natural boundaries. The Richat has exactly that. The mountains to the north, plateaus to the east, river valleys to the south and west, a geographic fortress. The local Mauritanian legends speak of a king, an ancient ruler, a dynasty that commanded the region until disaster struck. And the mountains themselves bear the name of that dynasty's founder. Atlas, 2,000 years of myths, local tribal memory, geographic naming conventions, ancient texts, all pointing to the same location, the same ruler, the same lost city. This is not accident. This is cultural memory refusing to be erased. Plato gave us a date, 11,600 years ago. A single day, a single night, and a civilization vanished. For centuries, scholars treated this as poetic exaggeration. Mythic time. Unreliable. But the date is precise, and it matches something real. Around 12,800 years ago, within the margin of Plato's timeline, something catastrophic happened to Earth. A comet or asteroid debris struck the northern hemisphere. Multiple impacts, shock waves, devastation. Scientists call it the Younger Dryas impact theory. The evidence is emerging in ocean sediments, in platinum spikes across multiple continents, in the sudden climate shift that followed. Temperatures plummeted, ice sheets destabilized, massive meltwater flooded into the Atlantic. The impact triggered a mega tsunami, a wall of water unlike anything modern humans have witnessed. Waves that traveled across oceans, waves that swept inland across continents. West Africa was devastated. The Atlantic coastline, where the Green Sahara met the sea, would have experienced a catastrophic surge. Tsunamis sweeping inland, water rushing through valleys and river channels, flooding everything in their path. Now picture the Richat, a thriving port city, connected to the sea by navigable channels, surrounded by water and canals. The mega tsunami hits. The water doesn't recede gently. It comes as a wall. It destroys the city's defenses. It floods the rings. It crushes buildings. It leaves behind mud. Plato wrote something crucial. After Atlantis sank, the ocean became impassable by mud. Not just water, mud, a muddy, silted, debris-choked expanse that made navigation impossible. That's the signature of a megatsunami. The water recedes, but it leaves behind layers of silt, sand, sediment, and debris. The seafloor churned up and deposited inland. The city would have been buried under that mud, suffocated, entombed. And then the climate shifted. The Green Sahara period began to collapse. Rains decreased, the rivers dried, the lakes evaporated. Within centuries, the desert returned. The city, once gleaming beside a coastal civilization, was now buried, isolated, forgotten, covered by sand and sediment in a land that became hostile to human life. Plato's date of 11,600 years ago lines up perfectly with the second wave of the Younger Dryas impact events. This is not coincidence. This is a catastrophe recorded in two places: in Plato's memory, corrupted but preserved, and in the geological and astronomical record. A day when the sky fell. A night when Atlantis drowned. If Atlantis is real, if it's buried under 40 feet of sand in Mauritania, if the evidence is there, why hasn't anyone dug it up? Why is the Richat not an active excavation site? The answer is complicated, remote, dangerous, politically complicated, unstable region, limited academic funding, limited international interest. The Richat Structure is not in a major population center. It's not in an easily accessible country. It's not in a region where Western archaeologists have easy permission to work, and the local governments have other priorities. But there's a historical precedent: Troy. For thousands of years, Troy was a myth, a story, something Homer wrote about, something no sensible scholar believed actually existed. Then, in the 1870s, a German archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann went to Turkey and dug. He found the ruins, layer upon layer, multiple cities built on top of each other. The city of Troy was real. It had been there all along, buried, waiting. Everyone had assumed it was legend. Everyone was wrong. The same could be happening with the Richat. Local artifacts have been found on the surface: arrowheads, pottery shards, anchors, evidence of habitation, evidence of an ancient port. But systematic excavation has never been conducted. The real city lies beneath, under 40 feet of sand and sediment, hidden from casual survey. To find it, you need LiDAR, satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, subsurface mapping technology. You need organized, funded, multinational archaeological teams. You need political cooperation. You need time. None of that has happened yet, but it will. Because the evidence is too strong to ignore forever. The numbers match, the geometry matches. The stone matches, the water sources match. The date matches. A city doesn't leave this many signatures by accident. Atlantis isn't a legend anymore. It's an archaeological site waiting to be excavated. The evidence. The map. Herodotus labeled Atlantis on the coast of North Africa 2,500 years ago. A detail dismissed as error, but it points directly to the Richat. The math. Plato specified 127 stadia for the city's diameter. Modern measurement converts that to 23.5 kilometers. The Richat measures 23.5 kilometers across its inner rings. The numbers don't lie. The geometry. Plato described concentric rings of land and water alternating in precise pattern. The Richat displays that exact geometry. An opening to the sea, bridges and canals, all of it there. The stones, 3 colors, red, black, white. Plato was specific. Geological surveys confirm all 3 types of bedrock exposed in concentric rings. The water, Plato mentioned freshwater springs from underground sources. Hydrogeologists have found evidence of ancient aquifers beneath the Richat, paleo waters that once flowed upward naturally. The date, Plato said 11,600 years ago. The Younger Dryas impact event struck around 12,800 years ago, with secondary impacts following. The timeline aligns. A megatsunami would have obliterated a coastal city. The mud. Plato wrote that the ocean became impassable by mud after the city sank. A megatsunami leaves behind exactly that: layers of silt, sediment, debris. The city buried, suffocated, entombed. The location. The Green Sahara period allowed a city to flourish where the desert now reigns. Ancient Mauritania was green, wet, connected to the sea. The conditions Plato described actually existed. This is not mythology, this is evidence. Circumstantial? Yes, but overwhelming. The odds of all these details aligning by random chance are mathematically impossible. Atlantis wasn't lost at sea. It was erased from the Sahara. But here's what matters most. Plato didn't just describe the city's physical details. He explained why it fell. Hubris, arrogance, ambition without wisdom. A civilization that grew too proud, too powerful, too confident in their dominance. They expanded, they conquered, they believed themselves invincible. And then, in a single day, the world fell apart. The sky fell, the water rose, the city drowned. The civilization ended, and Plato recorded it as a warning, not just to his own generation, but to all generations. Because we are making the same mistakes. We are building higher, expanding faster, poisoning the climate, destabilizing the systems that keep us alive. We are repeating the arrogance of Atlantis, and the universe has a way of humbling civilizations that forget their fragility. The ruins of Atlantis lie buried in the Sahara, a monument to a superpower that believed it was eternal. It wasn't, and neither are we, unless we learn the lesson that the Eye of Africa is trying to teach us. This is where the investigation ends. But this is where the reckoning begins. Subscribe, stay vigilant, stay humble. Because the rise and fall of civilizations follows a pattern, and we are far along the curve.